So I'm going to talk a little bit today about craft chocolate and this new trend of craft chocolate that's happening in Thailand, and give you a little bit of education on how chocolate is made from Thai cocoa beans, a little bit about the current situation for craft chocolate in Thailand, and then a little bit about my company, Siamaya Chocolate, that has been producing chocolate here in Chiang Mai for about 7 years now. And I'll leave a little bit of time at the end for any questions you guys have, and I'm a pretty open book, so any questions you want to ask. So to start, one thing I wanted to do is help distinguish the difference between industrial chocolate, what we call industrial chocolate, and craft or artisanal or bean-to-bar chocolate, which is what my company is. So globally, there are 3 cacao companies that process cacao into different cacao products that other chocolate companies make. OFI, Cargill, and Berry Calabo. Cargill has a big factory in Malaysia and is using mostly beans from West Africa and Indonesia. These companies are supplying the vast majority of chocolate companies in the world. For example, Hershey's and Mars do not buy cocoa beans. They buy pre-processed cacao mass that they then make their chocolates from. The challenge or the issue with this kind of supply chain is that you have 3 companies that control 60% of all the cocoa beans globally. There is, as you've all probably seen in news over the last many years, there's some ethical and environmental concerns with cacao production, and in this type of supply chain, it is very difficult for consumers to pick chocolate that has been sourced ethically and sustainably. And so kind of in the last 20 years, a new type of chocolate business has emerged, which we call bean-to-bar chocolate, and it is kind of in reaction to this type of industry. So bean-to-bar chocolate there's no actual definition. It's not an industry standard term, but it's also synonymous with craft or artisanal chocolate. And what we're trying to communicate here with this term is that we control every part of the process, from buying the cacao beans to making the finished products. There are also some who go a little step further and would call themselves tree to bar, where they're actually producing the cacao. They have their own farms. They're growing the cacao. And in Chiang Mai, in Thailand, we have a number of tree to bar producers as well. So our industry, we are controlling the entire process. So we select the beans that we're buying. We partner directly with cacao producers. In the case of Siamaya Chocolate, we are buying almost 95% of our cacao from a co-op in Lampang called Nakorn Lampang Cacao Social Enterprise. And we've been working with Patom, who is the director there, for now 2 to 3 years on buying beans from them, growing our businesses together, making sure the quality meets the standards we have. Industrial chocolate is primarily concerned with volume and price. And so they are buying all grades of cacao beans and processing them and mixing them to make their chocolate. One of the secrets in chocolate making is if you have bad quality cocoa beans, you add vanilla to your chocolate to kind of hide the flavor. So in craft chocolate, we don't add vanilla because we are trying to have you taste the flavors of cacao, not mask bad flavors. So if you're looking at a chocolate bar in the store and you look on the back and it says it has vanilla or vanillin added, it's probably because they're buying medium grade cacao, trying to hide some flavors. One of the benefits of a craft chocolate company like mine is we can do very specialized and localized flavors and products, and our company is founded on making unique Thai-inspired flavors. We have some, which I'll explain a little bit. We have some curry flavors like khao soi. We have some fruit flavors like durian. You're going to get a couple samples and maybe get to try some. One of the other differences with craft chocolate and industrial chocolate is craft chocolate is a very fragmented industry. There are many, many producers. There is not a lot of like industrial chocolate. You kind of have 10 major chocolate companies that produce most of the chocolate in the world. Craft chocolate, you have thousands of small craft chocolate companies that are all working out their own niche market, and it's also quite competitive because of that as well. So cacao. I'm going to give you a little bit of overview of how cacao is grown, processed, and how we then turn it into chocolate. So cacao is the scientific name for cacao is Theobroma cacao. And if you, Theobroma means drink of the gods, and cacao is it's the Spanish cognate for the Mayan word cacao, because cacao originally came from Central America. It actually came from the Amazon, and over the course of thousands of years migrated up to Central America, and it was really the ancient cultures in Central America, the Olmec, Mayan, and Aztec civilizations that really refined and developed the process of turning cacao into chocolate drinks, was primarily what they were using it for. Cacao comes in a million different colors. Almost every color in the color spectrum you can have a cacao pod come, and they will almost always have some change of color. So you can see in this photo here, the cacao is changing from purple to kind of this aquamarine green, and you'll have these other darker purple cacao. In Thailand, our cacao is, the main variety of cacao being produced is called Chumpan 1. This variety was developed by the Thai government around the late 1980s, early 1990s, as an additional crop that farmers could plant, because cacao is a jungle tree. It likes to grow in the dark. And so the idea there with the Thai government was, let's create a variety that will grow with existing fruit trees. So you can plant it with your longan trees, and you add an extra source of revenue to your farm without needing additional land or to cut down your existing trees. So a lot of the cacao being produced right now in Thailand is being planted, we'd say intercropped with other fruit trees, longan, some mango I've seen, coconut, lychee, some of these other fruits. Chumpan variety is quite fruity, is the way that we would describe it. It has a little bit of acidity and fruit flavors in there. After the meeting, if you get a chance to come out and try our 70% dark chocolate, we've got some samples, you'll really experience this juicy cherry note that is distinctive to the way that we process this Thai cacao. Globally now, in the craft chocolate scene, Thai cacao is being perceived as quite unique and distinctive because of this very fruity note. And so the demand for, internationally, the demand for Thai cacao is outstripping what can be produced. This is one reason that has forced us as a company to really partner with local farmers, is to ensure that we have our supply before it gets exported. But yeah, some really exciting things happening with cacao in Thailand. Really what's happened since the 1980s is that cacao essentially disappeared in Thailand. There was no market for it. And it's only been in the last 10 years that people have become interested and there's more of a market for it. So our company, Siamaya Chocolate, was one of the first to start buying local cacao and turning it into chocolate bars. And so we've kind of been right at the forefront of this revolution in Thailand. All right, so processing. How is cacao turned into chocolate? So cacao is a evergreen tree. It produces these pods on the tree, as you can see in the top. These pods will produce year-round, but they do have kind of peak seasonality. In Thailand, at least in northern Thailand, most cacao is fruiting after the rainy season. So we will have peak harvest from October till about February. Cacao can handle a lot of extreme weather conditions, but it doesn't like change. So northern Thailand is not actually a great place to grow cacao because during the dry season, we have this extreme temperature difference between night and day. Cacao doesn't like this. And also you have to irrigate cacao during the dry season in northern Thailand. In southern Thailand, Nakhon Si Thammarat, Phuket, these areas, you can kind of grow it year-round. You don't need any additional water inputs, and the temperature stays much more stable there. So a cacao tree will produce thousands of flowers each year. They're very tiny flowers, so small that bees cannot pollinate. You actually need midges and fruit flies are what pollinates the cacao. Only about 100 flowers will turn into pods over the course of a year, and a tree will produce, a mature tree can produce about 100 kilos of pods, this fruit here. When you crack it open, inside you have these seeds that are coated with a fruit, like a pulp, has the taste almost like mangosteen. These seeds are scooped and put into a fermentation bucket, and we start a process of fermentation which digests that pulp around the seeds, and the process of doing that helps to kill the seeds so they can't germinate, and also develops some of the flavor. And so it's a two-phase fermentation. If you remember from your science class back in high school, when yeast digests sugars and starches, it turns it into alcohol. One of the byproducts is alcohol. So this first phase of fermentation is about creating alcohol, and then the second phase of fermentation is where bacteria, lactobacteria, will digest the alcohol and turn it into acetic acid, and that acid is what kills the bean and prevents it from germinating. Also adds to kind of the fruity note, the fruity character of some of the cacao. So this is the first phase. They will dump the seeds into wooden boxes or barrels and cover it with banana leaves, and the yeasts that are existing on the outside of the cacao pod and inside of the fermentation vessel and on the banana leaves is what will start the fermentation process. So you can see here that they're covering, this is Patom, our main producer. So he's buying cacao pods from many different farmers, about 30 to 40 different farms, but he does all the fermentation himself to ensure we have consistent quality. So he'll cover the seeds with banana leaves and leave it for about 2 days until he starts to smell alcohol. When he starts smelling alcohol and can measure high temperatures, he'll then do a anaerobic fermentation, which is happening here in number 5, where you're constantly mixing. Every day or every 2 days you mix the cacao, the mass of cacao beans, and introduce oxygen, and this allows the bacteria to convert all that alcohol to vinegar. And when I started getting involved in chocolate, I thought this fermentation process was very more scientific, and you could have a very clear set of guidelines to how to ferment. And as I have been in the industry a little bit more and seen fermentations happen, what I've realized is it's actually more like making sourdough, right? The best sourdough in the world is not made at factories. The best sourdough is made by sourdough experts who have learned how to make sourdough in their specific kitchen, right? They know how to read that starter, how to feed it, how to make sure that it is warm enough or moist enough, all those kind of things. So that's kind of the art of fermenting cacao, is understanding all of the conditions and how to adjust when things are going wrong. And it's going to be different for every single farm, every single location, because the natural yeasts in that region, the natural climate conditions are all going to be different. And so this is one of the challenges for Thai cacao farmers, is that you have to really learn to ferment your cacao in those specific conditions, and you can't really copy what someone else is doing, because it's all going to be a little bit different. So you have to be good at recording your temperatures, learning how to identify the smell of alcohol, learning how to do cut tests where you cut the beans open to check if it has, the acid will kind of digest some of the inside of the beans and create fissure lines. So you have to be able to learn how to do all that and notice color changes. And so this is the big challenge for cacao farmers in Thailand. It's easier to sell your pods to someone else who knows what they're doing, but of course you make the least amount of money that way. And so we're really, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in Thailand to try to encourage knowledge transfer and training to help farmers learn how to ferment so that they can add value to their product and get more money for their efforts. You can kind of see after it has fermented, the pulp kind of flakes off and is digested. And then the next step, of course, would be drying. So cacao is then laid out and dried. The art of drying cacao is almost as important as the art of fermenting cacao. And depending how you dry it will totally affect the flavor of the cacao. Also, if it's not done correctly, you run risks of mold and other issues. Northern Thailand, the strength of growing cacao in northern Thailand is it's a lot easier to dry here than in the south, because we do have our biggest harvest is in the dry season. We have a lot less issues of rain, and so you can really do sun drying at scale here, where in the south you do need greenhouses. If you're doing it at scale, you would need greenhouses where you can dry while it's still raining or where there's high humidity. After cacao is dried, we like it down to about 7% moisture, 6.5 to 7% moisture content. It's then hand sorted. It can be machine sorted, but Patom is trying to employ as many people as he can, and so he employs some elderly women in his community that can't find employment in other work, and they will do hand sorting of the cacao, which is great for us, and we pay a premium for this hand-sorted cacao, and it's great for us because we don't need to sort it then ourselves. If we were buying lower grade cacao, we would need to sort in our facility, which of course adds cost. And this is Patom and I negotiating a deal, and we engage in what we call direct trade. So Patom and I sit in October every year and have some hot chocolate and chat about volume that we need for next year and the price that we're willing to play, and we agree on both of those things, and then because it's a friendly agreement, not legally binding, we adjust as we need to throughout the year. So this is all farmer's side to make cacao beans. The fermentation and drying process is critical to the quality of the cacao and the flavor that I can make from that cacao bean. So the way I think of it is what Patom is doing here, he is kind of adding flavor into these beans. 80% of the flavor that I get is his responsibility. The other 20% I do when I do my roasting process. So my first process of doing is roasting, which does three things for the cacao. It helps develop flavor. It changes from a much more nutty flavor to a much more chocolatey flavor. It also will remove the additional, that 6.5% moisture that's in the beans. It'll remove it out. And it will also help puff the shell, this kind of papery shell off the bean, which we then need to remove. So the second step after roasting is that we do a winnowing process. So winnowing, this is a machine made here in Thailand, and it was originally used for rice, to remove the husk of rice grains, but they've modified it for cacao, and it crushes the cacao into pieces, and then a vacuum will suck the shell off, and what we're left with is cacao nib, which I'm sure you've seen at the market, is essentially crushed cacao bean. You can eat it like a snack. Cacao has almost no natural sugars in it. It's primarily protein and fiber and fat. It's about 50% fat, similar to a peanut. So the cacao nib for us is our raw material that we then use to make our chocolates. Cacao nib is about 50% fat and 50% solids. When a chocolate bar, we would call it a suspension of particles in fat. So basically we need to have enough fat to then suspend our sugar and cacao solids and milk if we're doing a milk chocolate. And so when I do my recipes, I think first, how much fat is in the cacao nib? What kind of chocolate am I making? How intense do I want it? And then in some cases, I may need to add some additional cacao fat, cocoa butter. So in that case, we have another producer just north of Chiang Mai that will buy lower grade beans, because cacao fat has no flavor to it, so we can use a little bit lower grade beans. And so she will press the cocoa butter for us. And when we make milk chocolate, for example, we do need to add a little bit of extra fat to get that up enough for suspending the particles. And for chocolate, we kind of have two processes we need to do, and the first one is refining. So refining is where you're making all the particles, the cacao, the sugar, the milk, anything else you're throwing in there, coffee, if we throw some coffee in there. You want them all uniform, and you want them smaller than 25 microns, because this is where your tongue cannot distinguish texture. So if we can refine down below 25 microns, and we have a tool to measure that, then we know that the chocolate will taste smooth. It will have a nice mouthfeel. So that's one thing that we're doing. And then the second thing is called conching. And this is what Lindt, the founder of Lindt Chocolate, Mr. Lindt, I don't know his first name, what he invented was this process of conching, which is where you leave your grinder running for long periods of time, and it will evaporate out undesirable flavors. One of the great things about cacao is it is loaded with flavors, and many of these flavors are beneficial antioxidants and things, but some of those flavors are very bitter, and some of them are astringent, and sometimes you have very high acidity. So the conching, where we leave this stone grinder, we call a melanger, this stone grinder will spin for up to 72 hours, 3 days straight, and that's entirely to evaporate out these undesirable flavors. We can over-conch. I can make my chocolate taste like a Hershey's bar if I conch it for a week, and I'll evaporate out all of the bad flavors and all of the interesting ones as well. So for us, our art kind of comes in, how do we balance getting rid of the flavors we don't want and keeping all the stuff that Patom has worked hard to put into those beans. And so we have a couple different processes for different chocolates. Milk chocolate, milk is a strong flavor and will mask a lot of imperfections. And so milk chocolate, you don't need as precise, you don't need as good quality cacao. We buy all the same quality, so for us it's not the case, but milk chocolate doesn't need the same detail for producing, because milk will mask some of the flavors of the cacao. Likewise, when you get very high percentages, 80% and above, the cacao is so intense that, again, you're not tasting subtle flavors. So kind of milk chocolates and very, very dark chocolates, the need for precision and quality is not as important as it is for when we make a 70% dark chocolate. So a 70% dark chocolate, sugar, it has 30% sugar in it, right? Not great for your health, that sugar, but sugar will dilate your taste buds to receive flavor. And so this is where you're having maximum flavor from the cacao. So this, for us, is where we have to really focus on our production, is making sure that that 70% is using the best cacao, the roasting was done well, the winnowing was clean, we don't have shell in it, and we really check the refining process on that 70%. Again, chocolate, the fat in cocoa butter is a crystallizing fat, so it's a saturated fat that crystallizes at slightly above body temperature, but then melts at body temperature. This is why a chocolate bar is solid, but when you put it in your mouth, it will melt. So we have to temper the chocolate just like doing steel. We heat it up to melt all the crystals, cool it down, and then heat it up a little bit at the temperature that we want. Once it's crystallized, we can then mold it, add our flavoring, we then package it and hand wrap it, and of course, the final part would be enjoying the chocolate. And many of the processes that we're doing are the same processes industrial chocolate is doing, just at a much larger scale, although most of them are not buying cacao beans. Yeah. All right, so a little bit about Thailand's, the craft chocolate scene in Thailand. It is a very young industry. Siamaya Chocolate is one of the oldest chocolate makers, and we are the very old, almost 7 years, 6.5 years old. Again, the Thai cacao has got this very unique character to it, this Chumpon 1 variety. And luckily for Thailand, this is the majority of cacao is this Chumpon 1 variety. And so we do have this distinctive flavor. There are other varieties, and there's one that was developed at Meizhou University called I Am 1 that has a very different flavor profile. This one is not produced as much as Chumpon 1. The other interesting thing is for craft chocolate, we have over 200 bean-to-bar chocolate makers in Thailand. Making chocolate is quite easy, and it's a very easy entry level. You can buy a stone melanger, like I showed you, a tabletop one, for $150 to $200, and you have a machine that can make chocolate as delicious as the chocolate I make with much more sophisticated equipment. The big challenge, though, of course, is scaling. So most of these 200 bean-to-bar chocolate makers in Thailand are very small scale. They might be more focused on having a cafe and using the chocolate in their cafe goods, and also selling a little bit of chocolate. As far as large-scale craft chocolate companies, there's probably about seven or eight right now in Thailand, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Also, Thailand consumers are very different from European, Australian, American consumers. Thais do not eat chocolate bars. It's too hot, and you can't impulse buy a big chocolate bar unless you're at the grocery store. Most of the chocolate consumed in Thailand is being consumed as beverages, as pastries, and as snack, what we would call candy bar. What's it called? Ferrero Rocher, those gold foil balls. That's the #1 selling chocolate in Thailand, followed by Kit Kat. Those are about 80% biscuit, 20% chocolate. Very different kind of product from what I'm making as chocolate bars. So a lot of the chocolate innovation and craft chocolate in Thailand is actually not in chocolate bar form, but in other products that are, because most of these producers are selling to friends and family, their local community, and at a Thai audience. But there is a big growing interest in local chocolate scene, and a lot of interesting developments have been happening over the last year or so in regards to that. There's a chocolate maker so this is the interesting thing about chocolate, and when I talk to other chocolate makers in Thailand, this is what I tell them. One of the great things about chocolate versus coffee or tea is that you can do a million different things with chocolate and have a business out of it. You can have a business selling brownies, you can have a business selling bonbons, drinks, whatever. Where with coffee, really you're selling hot cups of coffee or iced coffee. And so this is the interesting thing about chocolate. We have an annual chocolate festival started by Jack from a company called Yellow Chocolate. And he's using local cacao, and his entire business is making a chocolate cake. One type of chocolate cake, and he'll do kind of art on top of the chocolate cake for birthdays and customize this kind of thing. And he has a whole business with about 12 employees making a chocolate cake with some Thai cacao. He has been at the forefront of organizing the movement in Thailand. He founded this Thai TCCF, Thai Craft Chocolate Festival, we've now been in our 4th year. And a group of us went to the Philippines for training on cacao fermentation, and I sponsored Patom for this in January. And during that time, we decided to found a trade association. So as of 2 weeks ago, we officially founded and launched a Thai trade association for cacao and chocolate, with the intention of turning Thailand into a destination, like a country of excellence for cacao, and making Thailand famous, not only for its food and for a wonderful place to visit, but also for its chocolate and chocolate products. And also, we now have some local producers of machinery too, and so we're setting ourselves up for a lot more development in the chocolate industry in the future. If you're interested, the TCCF, we're called TACO now, TACCO, which is not the direct acronym for the name. We've just launched, and so the website is still in development, but we do have different membership options, including a Friends of Thai Chocolate option, where you can get a little bit of, I think you get a free chocolate bar, or you get a chocolate bar every year, and it's a way to kind of support the industry. And there's a website there. Other interesting things happening in Thai chocolate is, of course, the innovations in other products. We have a lot of innovations in beverage, especially. Of course, there's bars and bonbons and other treats, and then some cosmetics that are being made with local cacao. The big difference, I think the big focus in Thailand right now is actually happening in chocolate drinks. We have a wonderful cafe here in Chiang Mai called Kom, which is Thai for bitter, Kom Chocolate, and she makes single origin sipping cacao from all over Thailand, and has this great cafe to try different types of specialty chocolate. The festival has a competition each year for the best chocorista, and we've got some really interesting drinks that are coming out of this. Also, cacao, the fruit on the cacao, the pulp, can be juiced, and there's a lot of interest happening around cacao juice in Thailand as well. And just a few little stats about Thailand. So we do have some industrial chocolate producers in Thailand. They are not using Thai cacao. They are importing cacao from, not beans, but mass from other regions of the world. Locally produced chocolate in Thailand, this is underestimating, but we had about 1.65 billion baht in sales last year from chocolate made in Thailand. And of that, 139 million baht was from the top 7 chocolate producers, representing about 9.2%. This is only 7 producers. I said there was 200 plus bean to bar producers, so it is not counting businesses that are not VAT registered yet, because I couldn't pull the data. So craft chocolate since 2019 has grown 10 times, whereas industrial producers has only grown about 2.2 times. So I think we were going to see a lot of interesting things happening in the future with craft chocolate industry. And I'll just spend the last 3 minutes talking about Siamaya Chocolate. So some people ask us where the name comes from, and I don't do a very good job explaining it. I'll explain it as clearly as possible. So we decided to communicate the concept of our business, which is a fusion of Thai flavors with the history of chocolate. So Siam, of course, is the old world for Thailand, and the Maya were the first chocolate makers based in Mexico, Guatemala area. So we kind of combined the name as our way of saying we're fusing Thai flavors with the history of chocolate. We were founded in 2017. We have about just over 30 staff at the moment. And our current production is about 30,000 chocolate bars per month. We are the largest chocolate bar producer of both craft and industrial in Thailand. Every other chocolate bar is produced outside of Thailand. We're not the biggest chocolate company, and we are not the biggest chocolate bar sold, but we produce the most based in Thailand. And we hope to be able to produce about 50,000 per month by the end of the year. We've also received a number of international chocolate awards for some of our products, and we have some out for you guys to try after the meeting. Here's a picture of our staff, and Lily is joining us today. She's in our marketing and communications team, and we're continuing to grow and adapt and develop, and really trying to create a business structure that will allow us to scale, because I think we're really in a good position to grow into one of the major players in Thailand for chocolate. Our primary product is chocolate bars. We decided very early on that we would focus on one thing only, so that we could learn how to scale it and learn how to sell it. And so we focused on chocolate bars. 95% of all the chocolate we make goes into chocolate bars. We do make a few other products, some coated nuts and things, but we're not distributing this out very much, and we do some custom work for other people. Most of our sales are happening out of retail locations. So probably 60%, 70% of our sales are happening in wholesale and consignment. Our biggest customer being the duty-free shop at the airport, King Power. Our second biggest source of revenue at the moment is our 3 retail locations in Chiang Mai. We just opened a big red building on Taipei Road that many people were asking when we were building if it was going to be a post office or a fire station. So feel free to stop by there. We will be moving our office there next month, and we are continuing to tweak and adapt. We opened it there to have more visibility, because our previous shops were very hidden. And then, of course, we go to events and trade shows, and I do a couple trips to the US to sell chocolate, and we have done to Paris a couple of times in the past. And then finally, this is where you all come in, one of the other things that we love to do is collaborations. We've participated in events doing fondue and other things like TEDx. We've also had some artist collaborations where we've done chocolate bars with art on the chocolate bar wrapper. And of course, we can make customized chocolate bar packaging, and we've done that for a number of hotels in Chiang Mai. And then finally, for what's happening for us in the future, like I said, we are trying to be able to produce 50,000 chocolate bars per month. So we are currently in process of renovating half of our factory. We are bringing in a 500 kilo refining machine. We'll be the first craft chocolate company to have one of this size. It weighs 2 tons, so it took quite a, this was just installed on Tuesday. So our plan is to continue to grow. Right now, mainly our market is focused on tourists and expats and wealthy Thais in Bangkok. We plan in the next couple of years to transition to more of a Thai audience, which would be different price points, different sizes, and things like that. But I think we have a lot of opportunity to continue to grow in Thailand, and we're excited for what the future is going to hold. Thank you.